When Kaname Sudo receives an invitation for the app Darwin's Game from his friend Hamada, he is immediately curious to try out the game. Although his classmate Kyoto warns him strongly not to open the app, he accepts the invitation and starts the game. Suddenly, a snake jumps out of his screen and bites his neck. Kaname wakes up confused in his school's hospital room, but he dismisses the snake as a hallucination and wants to go home to recover from the shock. Kyoto warns him again not to open the game app, but Kaname cannot contain his curiosity on his way home. He opens the game once again and accepts a combat challenge from Bonda-kun, an aggressive man in a panda costume who suddenly appears next to him on the subway. Bonda-kun attacks the perplexed Kaname, but he manages to fend him off and flees through the city. The panda chases Kaname incessantly and not even a policeman can stop the violent panda. He already saw his tombstone engraved with death by a panda when Kyoto appears and saves Kaname. However, in doing so, Bonda-kun injures him severely. Despite Kyoto's injury, he and Kaname manage to escape and hide in a car park. Kaname now finally realizes that this is no ordinary mobile game. It is a real-life game, with no way to escape and the stakes are life or death. Kyoto explains to him why Bonda-kun is such a strong opponent. He can make himself invisible through his sigil, an ability each player is given through the bite of the snake and is then able to master in the most natural way. Kaname and Kyoto soon realize there is no point in hiding from Bonda-kun, as their opponent can track Kaname's location through the app. They conclude that Kaname must leave the injured Kyoto behind, in order to lure the panda away from him. He fights off Bonda-kun's attacks in close combat but eventually doesn't seem to stand a chance against him. However, the fight comes to an abrupt end, when Kaname's invisible opponent is suddenly hit by a car, ending the fight in Kaname's favor. Bonda-kun's lifeless body is teleported piece by piece, leaving only a pixelated outline on the ground. Kaname is familiar with these pixel outlines. They have been appearing all over the city lately and people have taken them for modern street art. But now Kaname realizes the truth, they are the remains of those who lost the Darwin's game. After his fight, Kaname rushes back to his friend Kyoto, but all he finds is just another pixel outline. High-ranking player Shuka Karino learns of Kaname's victory over Bonda-kun and is amazed at the rookie's win over his strong opponent. She wants to meet Kaname and invites him to an abandoned warehouse. But Shuka isn't sure if she can trust Kaname and asks him to reveal his sigil. However, Kaname can't give her an answer, which arouses Shuka's suspicion, and she challenges him to a fight. Kaname is able to fend off Shuka's attack by temporarily blinding her with a flashing light. But even Shuka's blind attacks are immensely powerful and Kaname recognizes her sigil. She can control big chains and snake-like motions, piercing her enemies with the sharp tips. While Kaname tries to escape the chains, he hears a voice inside of him, which finally leads him to discover his sigil. He is able to summon any weapon he has touched before. A gun, that was delivered to his home earlier, now suddenly appears in his hand and he is able to keep Shuka in check with it. Shuka sees no option but to admit her defeat. Kaname lets out a sigh of relief and faints. The next morning, Kaname wakes up in Shuka's bed. She asks him to create a clan with her, as joining forces is a popular tactic by many players in Darwin's game, to fight together, defend each other and collect points together. Kaname agrees, but he learns that he has to get above fighting class B2 first. An ideal opportunity to level up presents itself to Kaname shortly thereafter. He receives a mysterious invitation in the game. Some selected players are allowed to participate in a treasure hunt in Shibuya. Kaname and Shuka consider it wise to explore Shibuya before the start of the event. During their tour, Shuka explains important information to Kaname about Darwin's game, or the game, as they call it in public to keep its existence a secret. Moreover, when Kaname checks his account balance at the ATM, he is overwhelmed by yet another surprise. The points he has collected are not just a score in the game but are transferred directly to his bank account as real money. In the Shibuya shopping center, Kaname's mobile phone is suddenly snatched away by Inukai, who is thus able to lure him into a dead-end street and challenge him to a fight. Inukai was able to track Kaname down through the information he bought from the player Rain Kashiwagi, known as the Analyst. Rain makes her living in the game by collecting and selling interesting data and information. Since word had already spread that newcomer Kaname had defeated both the new killer, Bonda-kun, and the invincible queen, Shuka, he presented an interesting target for Inukai. But Inukai's attack on Kaname turns out to be only a short fight before Shuka rushes to his aid, forcing Inukai to surrender. Suddenly, the treasure hunt begins, and the players are transferred to separate locations. Kaname finds himself in a hotel room and receives information about the treasure hunt. The goal of the 300 participants is to each find at least 3 golden rings within 24 hours. However, there is a catch: there are only 300 rings in total. Using the dimensional camera on his phone, Kaname immediately finds his first ring under his bed. But he isn't able to keep it for long, as he is attacked outside his hotel room by a player with a machine gun. He hands over his ring to the opponent, who spares Kaname's life and leaves through the elevator. Kaname is eager to leave the hotel and find Shuka, but this proves impossible as all the stairs are covered in proliferating thicket. Kaname sees the elevator as his only way of exiting the building, but Rain, the analyst, appears at the last moment and stops him from stepping into it. As the lift doors open, Kaname sees the reason for Rain's warning. His previous attacker with the machine gun is lying motionless on the ground, in the clutches of a massive plant. Rain immediately recognizes the work of the powerful player, the florist, who has trapped the whole hotel in plants. As Kaname and Rain search for a way out of the hotel, a chilling thought occurs to them: why was the body of the attacker in the elevator still there and not turned into a pixel outline? Just as the two realize the implications of this circumstance, they get an answer to their question. A crowd of zombie-like players attacks them. These players seem to not have been killed by the plants, but rather poisoned, and are now under the control of the florist. Rain analyzes the tricky situation she and Kaname find themselves in. With the help of her sigil called Laplace, she is able to analyze all information of the universe, seeing past and future clearly before her eyes. She concludes that the florist must be in the surveillance room, watching them through the surveillance cameras as he unleashes his mind-controlled soldiers on them. Therefore, Kaname and Rain destroy the surveillance cameras and hide in a hotel room to make a plan. To avoid the plants inside the building, Kaname rappels down the facade of the tower and meets the florist on the ground floor, who is ready to fight Kaname and transforms into a powerful plant creature. Kaname tries everything in his power to defeat the florist. He shoots him with his machine gun, throws grenades at him and blinds him with stun grenades. But the florist seems to be too strong. The fight between the two finally ends in the hotel chapel. Kaname is exhausted, but his inner voice speaks to him again and he suddenly finds himself in the workshop of a steel smith. This vision makes him realize that he needs more penetrating power against the florist, and he manipulates the pressure of his gun barrel to deliver a stronger blow. This proves to be extremely effective, and the florist concedes defeat. When Rain reaches the chapel, she explains that great danger is imminent. The 8th clan and their bloodthirsty leader Wang are about to storm the hotel to collect the 24 rings located there. Because of this prediction, they decide to form a temporary clan with the florist, whose name is Hiragi Ichiro, to fight the 8th with combined forces. Now that the florist's mind control has been lifted, Kaname's former opponent with the machine gun also comes back to his senses. The man named Ruji Misaka agrees to join the clan as well. The now 4 clan members set about barricading the hotel, to be as prepared as possible for the 8th's attack. Rain meanwhile puzzles over the values of the various gemstones on the rings. She notices QR codes inside the rings that represent further number combinations. She realizes that this must be the key to winning the game and the missing piece of the puzzle must be the diamond ring that no one has found yet. Meanwhile, Shuka is still searching for Kaname. She swings through the city, killing everyone who gets in her way. But then she gets caught in an ambush she can't escape. As she passes through an underground station, she is suddenly attacked by a little girl who is able to fend off her chain attacks with walls of ice, and eventually fills the hall with water. Shortly before drowning, Shuka sends out a call for help. Kaname and Ruji immediately set off to rescue Shuka. They meet Sui at the subway station, who pretends to be an innocent and scared little girl. Kaname immediately plunges into the water and dives for Shuka, who is lying unconsciously on the ground. He brings her to the surface and revives her with mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. As Shuka regains her consciousness, she is delighted about her first kiss she just shared with Kaname. Meanwhile, Ruji is busy with Sui. With the help of his sigil, he recognizes that Sui is lying and wants to find out the truth about what happened at the station. However, Sui flees from Ruji and her split personality emerges. When in danger, the spirit of her late twin brother Soda takes control of her body, who is, unlike Sui, ready to use brutal violence. They lead Ruji to a convenience store and trap him with ice. Soda wants to kill Ruji, but Sui is able to stop him. When Shuka and Kaname finally arrive at the convenience store as well, Shuka thanks Sui for causing her first kiss with Kaname and they recruit Sui for their clan. Shortly after, the 8th storm the hotel. Wang has even called in other clan members, who are not participating in the treasure hunt. The clan fights their way through the plant barricades, pushing further and further into the hotel with brute force. The powerful players Katsura and Sig take on Hiragi, but the florist holds his own in the fight. But suddenly, Keiichi appears and injures Hiragi fatally. With the very last of his strength, Hiragi keeps his heart beating by his sigil plants, and the powerful plants that are piercing the entire building finally cause it to shake and collapse. Rain, meanwhile, has solved the riddle about the numerical codes in the rings. After getting her hands on a diamond ring and sorting the stones according to their hardness, she recognizes the coordinates leading her to the Shibuya train station. She sets off there to look for the treasure, but quickly realizes that she is not the first. Wang also seems to have cracked the code and the 8th clan is already at the station. Wang uses his sigil to teleport in a way that Rain's Laplace cannot anticipate and manages to capture Rain. Through a brutal grip on her arm, he tries to extract information about the treasure from her. She tries to stall for time with a long story and sure enough, her clan finally shows up and frees Rain from Wang's clutches. Ruji, Shuka and Sui bravely fight the 8th, while Kaname takes the injured Rain to a safe place, where she is tasked with figuring out the final code to end the game. After a journey into her deepest self, Rain knows the solution. The code represents the publication date of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species. When Kaname returns to help his friends fight the 8th, Wang has already cut off Ruji's arm and is now about to kill him. But Kaname is able to stop him with a ruse. He claims to have solved the riddle and found the key to the treasure. The bluff works and Kaname hands Wang his moped key in return for Ruji's life. But Kaname has cracked the real code and quickly types in the combination of numbers at the station's lockers. This brings the treasure hunt to an abrupt end and the players are transferred. Kaname, now alone at the station, opens the box from the locker and finds a mobile phone inside. The phone rings, and the game master congratulates Kaname on his victory. He explains to him that, in addition to the myriad of points he has won, he is now also entitled to a very special prize, namely that Kaname may choose an in-game privilege. Some time later, the friends are at the Danjo Boxing Club. There, Ruji had been healed by Kid and Kaname is trained by the coaches. Master Danjo expresses his wish to join forces with Kaname's clan, who have named themselves the Sunset Ravens. But first, Danjo needs Kaname to prove himself worthy and defeat him in a fight. It is a tough fight between Danjo and Kaname, with Inukai as the referee and Rain and Ruji in the stands. But eventually Danjo deems Kaname worthy enough and accepts him and the Sunset Ravens as alliance partners. Suddenly, a mysterious masked woman appears and kidnaps Kaname. The woman turns out to be Lu Xuelan, the first-placed player of the D-game, who stems from a long generation of assassins. She had recognized Kaname's potential and now considered him the ideal partner to have children together and pass on their skills to the next generation. Shuka is outraged by Kaname's kidnapping. She chases Xuelan's car together with Rain, Ruji and Sui, and launches an attack on Xuelan from the roof of her car. An epic battle on the car roofs begins, but Shuka's attacks seem futile, until Kaname intervenes. He throws bottles to her, Shuka uses her chains to direct them onto the tires of Xuelan's car, and Sui freezes the contents, thus blocking the wheels. Xuelan admits defeat and expresses her desire to join the Sunset Ravens clan. Despite much protest from the clan members, Kaname agrees. Meanwhile, the 8th clan is already plotting their new revenge. They hold Kaname's schoolmate Shinazuka captive and torture him, in order to lure Kaname into an old warehouse. Kaname is furious and immediately sets out to free his friend, supported by the Sunset Ravens and Inukai. Before the clan arrives at the warehouses, a large police contingent is already there. But the 8th slaughtered the entire task force without much effort. When the Sunset Ravens arrive, they immediately set about fighting the 8th. Sui and Rain join forces against the attackers and Inukai fights the martial artist Keiichi. However, when Kaname learns that Shinazuka has been killed, something changes in him. Now, with Hamada, Kyoda and Shinazuka, 3 of his classmates have been killed in this game. Breaking his own supreme principles of not unnecessarily hurting anyone, he decides there is no other option but to kill the 8th. Kaname aggressively fights his way forward, shooting anyone who gets in his way. Meanwhile, Shuka single-handedly takes on Wang. She has spanned the entire warehouse with thin wires, which she can control with micro-vibrations using her sigil. Without moving much herself, she manages to fend off Wang's attacks, cutting off his limbs in the process. Finally, she catches Wang in the wire net and sends him plummeting from the sky. Wang is able to use his sigil just in time to avoid a fatal impact. But Kaname and Ruji are already standing in front of him, pointing their weapons. Kaname now reveals his granted privilege to Wang. He is a high roller who went all in the fight against the 8th clan. This now means that all of 8th clan's points are transferred to the Sunset Ravens account and the opponents have thus lost the game. The remaining 8th members are now transferred, including Wang, who Kaname shoots in the head as a last farewell. The battle against the 8th is now over, but Kaname swears revenge on the game masters. He wants to end this game once and for all and his clan agrees to support him in this endeavor. Together, the now bloodthirsty Sunset Ravens take over the Shibuya area and declare it a game-free zone. The game master on the other hand is delighted with the developments. Now the game can finally reach its next level. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.